Good evening. Hi, my name is Gunjan Aggarwal, and I'm here today to talk to you about work life balance. So, let me give you a quick introduction about myself, and then I can give you some of my thoughts about work life balance, how I look at it, and then finally, I would love for you to ask me questions, and then I would try my best to answer them. So, my name is Gunjan Aggarwal, and I am currently responsible for talent acquisition, which is recruiting, and mergers and acquisitions on the HR side for Ericsson. Ericsson, as most of you would know, is a networking company. A lot of people know Ericsson from its consumer product, which was a Sony Ericsson phone, but we got out of it many years ago. And currently, we operate in 180 countries. And the work that we do is around networking, which is managing the mobile infrastructure across 40% of the overall infrastructure of the world. And then we are into services and software associated with anything that has mobility. So that's a little bit about Ericsson. I joined Ericsson in 2012. Prior to this role, I just moved into this role in February of this year. I was the head of HR for their North American region and based out of Dallas. Before that, I spent almost 8 years in Novartis, which is a pharmaceutical company, Swiss pharmaceutical company, and I worked for them in Switzerland in their corporate office as well as Massachusetts in Cambridge and Boston. And I did various HR roles there. Primarily, I'm an HR business partner, but I dabbled in other things as well. And then before that, I worked for a few years in Unilever, which were my formative years with the company. In terms of as an HR professional, I think that was the organization that really helped me build my foundations. I worked with Unilever. I joined them straight out of my MBA school. I did my summer internship with them and fell in love with the company. And then I joined them in India, in Bangalore, and then I worked for them in their corporate office in London as well as in New Jersey. Before, for personal reasons, I had to um, leave that wonderful company, but luckily I joined another wonderful company, Novartis, and then again I'm in this really great company, Ericsson now. So that's a little bit about my professional life. Now, since we are talking about work-life balance, I think it's appropriate for me to share with you also my personal life. So my husband and I, we met in high school, and he is an engineer. He studied at UC Irvine and went back to India at that time when India was just opening up in terms of opportunities in the technology sector. And he worked in research at IBM and then joined Broadcom. And then we moved to US. uh, he moved to US and we moved around a little bit. I moved around with my career a little bit, eventually settling in, and we kind of found the same continent and home to live in together. And we have two boys, 11 and 7 years old, and that's another thing that factors into work-life balance. And I will, if there are questions in the audience, I'll be happy to share some of the things that work and don't work or didn't work for us as we have been managing our dual careers as well as our two very active kids. So that's background. Then coming straight on topic, what are some of the things that we can do in terms of work-life balance? That is a really, really pertinent topic. A lot of discussion ongoing right now about it. And so this is a perfect time for us to step back and think, what are the strategies we have in place for work-life balance in our life, and what are some of the trends and things that are ongoing that can help us in improving our work life balance. So, the way I look at work life balance, I see it in, and I don't have any slides to share because I wanted this to hopefully be conversational. Work life balance, things that work for me will not work for you. So I did not want to share any particular slides. The way I look at work life balance, there are two aspects to it at a very broad level. One is an internal level, an internal focus, and then the other is the external focus. So, when you think about internal focus, I think the biggest thing to really identify is uh, what are the key things that you would like to do to maximize your satisfaction every day or over an extended period of time. So, if as I think about my year, what are some of the things that I would like to achieve that would maximize my satisfaction with my work or with my personal life over a period of a year, for example? And then we break it down and say, okay, what are some of the key things I would like to achieve this quarter? What are some of the things I would like to achieve this week and then this day? And I think that is really important because I follow it. It really helps me stay centered, and it has also helped me advance or look at my career in a way which is very different from a traditional, let's say, upward ladder way of looking at it, or a particular cross-functional way of looking at my career. I'll give you an example of that. So, for example, for me to maximize my satisfaction overall with my existence, if I could put it that way, it is very important for me to be doing something meaningful with the education that I have received. And since I had the opportunity to do that with the support system that I had with my family, I felt that I needed to do some work where I could be creative and true to the satisfaction that I get from being innovative. So I have always had um, some project or some initiative or some article that I would be writing or reading up on, or some focus area that I would be spending time on researching, which is creative and innovative and satisfies my need to be creative and to be learning all the time, but also would be useful for the company that I'm working for. I'll give you an example. I was managing a plant in Bangalore in India, and diversity was really not that critical a topic at that time in this manufacturing plant, where actually we had women and men working as our employees. But for me, that was an area which was upcoming. This was in the year 2000, and I really wanted to know more about it. So I will always have that as a line item. I would always have some time in my calendar where I would just research and find out more about diversity in the workplace, diversity and inclusion, practices that support diversity and inclusion, and practices that do not. So that is an example of maximizing or some activities that you could do which really allow you to stay true to your internal definition of what is uh, um, satisfying to you, and that helps drive work life balance. Talking about externally at a very broad level, then you really need to start to break it down in terms of the infrastructure that is available to you. And the infrastructure would be in terms of people, and we have seen a lot written about it, how it takes a village, for example, to bring up children in the it takes a community, it takes extended family, friends to help bring up children. So, what kind of people that are available to provide you that support? Uh, what kind of, and this is relevant for men and women, anyone who has responsibilities towards children or an aging parent, I think this applies everywhere. The second aspect in terms of external support is that supports work life balance. External um, areas or strategies would literally be the organization that you work in and what kind of policies and practices they have in place. You would have read this recently. I mean, it is companies are recognizing that women and men There is no, they need some kind of support that goes beyond the traditional 9 to 5 working, because our employees are no longer working 9 to 5. So when KKR came up with this when there was this article in the news Washington Post about KKR, where they are now going to fly nanny or any person who's helping a spouse of their female employees during the first 1 year of them having given birth to a child. That was quite a bold, revolutionary statement and a bold step taken by KKR. And in their evolution with the number of employees they have, they are able to afford it and they are able to offer it. And there are women who are taking advantage of it. So that's great. But the key message is what kind of policies in the work organization that you work in are available to you that you could make use of. This is a great time because there's a big debate going on right now, and companies are moving in that direction, which supports work life balance. And the last piece of the puzzle really is technology, your own technology, access to the consumer technology. Here again, there is just so much going on in terms of the access to technology that you can utilize it to improve your work life balance and to be better organized. I'll give you an example. What I have found really interesting is that there is this um, app, or there is a desktop version of it as well called Pocket. And what it allows me is simply is on my cell phone or on the computer desktop, if there is an article that I really like, or if there is something, a news release that I really like, would like to read up and follow up on it, I can just save it and tag it as an article on culture, or an article on diversity, or an article on succession planning, which are some of the areas which are of my interest. And then I can tag it and save it, and then I can find some time later in the day or in the week to go back and read up on it. So these are, I've just given some very high level examples of what are some of the things that we can do. The biggest thing in terms of hierarchy of order is to really be very mindful of internally what is it that drives my highest satisfaction. Because if I feel satisfied with the way I'm spending my time, I would overall feel a sense of satisfaction with my work life balance. So I think that is a very, very critical lesson that I have learned. Um, for me, for example, when I was at when I was working, and I was doing a lot of work from home when I was in transit between different continents, I felt that I was not that satisfied. I felt every day that I was spending a lot of time interacting with my colleagues across the globe. So I was working crazy hours at night, early mornings, late in the night, and then throughout the day as well. The work kept dragging on, and I just felt tired and not happy, and I felt my work life balance is out of whack. But really, what it was not just that. It was more importantly the fact that I was not spending enough time with other colleagues and being energized by those discussions and conversations that I was used to. Now, having realized that about myself, I then I explored and found opportunities and moved into another role, which allowed me to be more present and have those interactions. So I think that's the first step. And then we look at the external aspects of technology, the people and infrastructure around us that can support us, and then ultimately the policies that the companies have in place. So with that, I will pause. In case there are questions, then we can take the discussion to any of these areas, but maybe prioritize towards what your questions and your interest might be. I have lots to share, but I'd rather share what is of interest to you. So please feel free to send your questions, and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, I can see there's a question coming in. Okay, so there are six questions. The first question is, how do I become more assertive with people who have more experience than me? And I'm just looking at the other questions just to quickly scan in case there is another question similar to that. Okay, very good. So there are a lot of great questions. Let me start then with the first one. So the first question again, how do I become more assertive with people who have more experience than me? So that's a wonderful question. Also, people who have more experience, people who may have more credibility in the organization. There might be people, when we say more experience, they are at a more senior level than us. Um, and all of these situations, then, how do we become more assertive? So I think that's a broader question in terms of how do you influence and be more assertive. So I will go into this is not to do with just work life balance. I will go into some of those some of the key things that we talk about in terms of influencing and negotiating. So the first thing is you need to be very clear on what do you need out of that relationship with the person. So let me think about an example. So let us say I need to have, I need to work from home on Fridays, for example. Or let us say my situation is that every week or 3 days a week, I have to leave at I need to leave every week at 5 p.m. every day so that I can be home, beat the traffic, and or even be in the traffic, but be home to take care of my kids, for example. Or I might have other interests that I need to go and participate in. And I know in my company, let's say my manager wants and my other peers in the team, they stay there for longer and they expect me to stay there longer because that's just how the team works. People come in maybe late and they stay later, or they come in time and they stay later because they don't have to be somewhere that quickly. So in that situation, now you have a manager, or you might have a peer who's more experienced that you need to convince to allow this to you to go back in time, but that should not impact in any negative way your overall performance or your reputation or the work that you do, credibility. um, I think I think the first step really in that is to identify and start to work in very clear terms in terms of what is it that you have to do, what are your deliverables. But I would say beyond that, it is also to see if your manager uh, has certain interests, for example, himself or herself, and try to understand how do they manage that, whether it's a man or a woman. Everyone would love to live a life which is more holistic. And so I think an opening that you need to explore is what might be the interest. If your manager likes to play golf, hey, strike up a conversation, go out for a cup of coffee with your manager, or treat them to a cup of coffee, or go out with them for lunch, or any kind of informal way to try to understand what is it that they are interested in outside of work, and then start to understand what kind of strategies do they deploy to spend time in doing what they like to do, and then start to build that one in terms of how you would approach your solution and your proposal to your boss. So let's say your boss loves to play golf, and he tries to do that on a Friday evening or over the weekends because he doesn't have the same issues that you might have on weekends or during the weekdays. And so start to approach with your boss with something like, wouldn't oh, so how you I hear you love golf, so if let's say you had time on a Wednesday afternoon to go and play golf and no one was saying anything, your work wasn't suffering, would you do it? Would you like to do it? And these are informal conversations you have, and you really start to uncover actually what are some of the blockers that your manager might have with someone working differently. Once you have the blockers, then you can go and understand, you can go and put a proposal in place which says, yeah, my manager feels that the work will not be done. So then we agree and we say, okay, every day I'm going to from 8 to 9 log in, or 8 to 9:30 log in at home at night, and also send a status update on what are the critical things that are happening and where we are with that. And that might be enough for your manager. For some others, it might be that you say, okay, I'm going to come in early and I will leave early, but I will finish all the work that needs to happen during those hours, but extend different working hours. So I think those are some of the things that you have to do. But the key thing is, what I can say, what has worked for me is really trying to understand what is the work life situation of the person that I'm trying to convince, and how do they cope with that, and then what is it that I can propose which will seem reasonable to them, given their ways of thinking. And then the assertiveness really is, I would say, more than being assertive, the point is, do you want to achieve your objective? If you want to achieve your objective, you don't have to be, it's not about assertive. Sometimes it's a give or take. Sometimes it might be, hey, you know what? Fridays I will work, or weekends you might need some cover. So 2 hours on weekends I'm going to spend, and I'll be on call for 2 hours on the weekend. I just need this flexibility during the workday. So it's a little bit of a give or take, and influencing from that perspective as well. I hope it answered something. Um, since I don't know the specifics, I can't comment on the specifics. Second question: what should work life balance mean to me if work is my life? So that's a great question. I love that question. I think the key thing is, if work is your life, um, that's a wonderful question, by the way. So if work is your life, but also one thing that I think you would agree is really going to help you in is stay in age form with your game, is with your life and your work, is if you stay fit and healthy. So I would say the one thing that you can do to really improve your work life balance while staying focused on your work, is to really start to build in an exercise regime into your life. I fully understand what you mean when you say your work is your life. My interpretation of that is that if you're not working, you're not happy. If you're not contributing, someone who's creative, who's doing things at work, you are achieving, you are getting recognized for the great work you do. And if you don't get that reinforcement, that it drives down your satisfaction with your life, with your work. So I just realized that I don't need the headset here. With that, I would say what you can probably do, which will really help you make you feel more satisfied and relieve your stress as well, is that if you could continue to exercise on a regular basis, maybe build in something that you might have had an interest in or a passion in as a kid. Maybe it is something around painting, so going to take painting class once a week or on a Saturday, or learning guitar, or any other anything in music that you might have an interest in. What it would do is it would create some boundaries and structure for you, and it will allow you to relieve your stress and will actually energize you even more, so that you can do even better in work. And when you do even better at work, since work is your life, you will feel more satisfied. The next question is, what advice do you have for working productively from a home office? So excellent, excellent question. And I'm actually doing a lot more of that myself, and still trying to figure out how to do this in a way which allows me to feel that I have work-life balance. So I think the important thing is you need to understand what is your body rhythm. That is very important when you work from home. And then secondly, how much of that, your times when you are at your peak performance, how much of that can match with the flexibility that you have in your job or you don't have. I'll give you an example. So when I was not in this position, I have a global role. We in Ericsson recruit 22,000 people a year. We hired in, for example, 2014, and my team is responsible for doing that globally across the world. And so my direct reports are in different parts of the world in different time zones, and so I need to talk to them. And the best time where it works is right in the morning. So from 5 in the morning to about 10 or 11 in the morning is when there is maximum activity, conversations, discussions, emails, and so on. So the best way to approach it is, I realized before this, when I was in a North America focused role, I used to every morning go to the gym in the mornings, which was for me the most important thing for my work life balance and stress and just feeling more productive and healthy overall. I had to stop doing that. And I have realized that since February to now, that not exercising in the morning, even though I try to fill that in later in the day, does not have the same impact on my overall feeling of satisfaction that the day went really well. And so I have now made an effort over the last few weeks to start exercising in the morning. So, what you need to do is when you're working from home, you need to set very clear boundaries. When is it the time in your body where you know mentally you're most productive? At that time, you need to focus on the critical and important things you need to do. Of course, you need to make a list the night before of what are the things that you will achieve the next day without opening your inbox and emails. You need to really relook at that so that you can prioritize and get done with some of those things before the madness of the day starts. And then you need to very clearly define times and block those in your calendar as, from this time to this time you're not available, you're not you're not going to work. And then once you get into that rhythm, that sets a routine for you. Um, oh, I'm getting a lot of questions. I have to go faster. Um, do you have any information? Oh, and one more thing on working from home. You need to very clearly define a workplace and a workstation area which is exactly conformative to and for you to be productive. So you need like a lot of space basically, and a lot of storage as well, where you can file your stuff and it's visible to you, so you can use it as needed. Next question. What do you have any information on how to develop and implement a work-life balance plan? Yes, there are quite a few things on the internet. There are quite a few templates available, and we have used these in our training programs as well in the past. I'm aware of some of those. I don't have any boilerplate template or a roadmap that I could give you, but what I would suggest is one, there is a template which on the internet that talks about making your plan for the next 2 years. So essentially, you look at what are the things you want to achieve in the next 2 years in your professional life and in your personal life. And these could be things that you achieve from a career perspective. And here it's not important, it is very important to not say things that are not in your control. So, yes, we would love to get a promotion, but that's not something that I can plan for. So, what is important is for you to write very clearly for your 2 year plan. For example, for me, the plan would be okay, I need to read up and contribute or write an article or be on a blog, for example, for around succession planning. I'm just giving you an example. Or I need to understand, how some of the key changes that are happening in the local legislation in the country, in US or in Europe. So you build your plan, 2 year plan for professionally. What are the things that you want to achieve, which are in your control?